The charity gala froze mid-champagne toast when the lobby doors burst open. Marcus Chen stood at the edge of the ballroom, his tuxedo worth more than most people's monthly rent, watching a security guard wrestle with a boy who couldn't have been more than 10. The child's jacket was threadbare, his sneakers held together with duct tape, and his face was streaked with tears and desperation. "Please, I just need to talk to someone," the boy shouted, his voice cracking. "My sister, she can't breathe. Someone here has to help." The guard's grip tightened. "Son, you can't be here. This is a private event." Marcus's crystal glass paused halfway to his lips. Something about the boy's face, the raw terror mixed with determination, made his chest constrict. Before he knew what he was doing, his feet were moving across the marble floor. But let's go back to where this really started. 14 hours earlier, when Marcus's day began with a decision that would change everything. Marcus woke at 5:30 a.m. in his penthouse overlooking the Boston skyline. His morning routine was mechanical. Espresso from a machine that cost more than a used car, 30 minutes reviewing overseas markets, another 30 on the treadmill while his assistant emailed the day's schedule. At 42, Marcus had built Chen Industries into a tech empire worth $800 million. He'd done it through ruthless efficiency, 16-hour workdays, and a philosophy he'd inherited from his father. Emotional attachment is a luxury successful people can't afford. His father had taught him that lesson the hard way. When Marcus was 12, his dad had refused to help Marcus's childhood best friend, whose family lost their restaurant. "Not our problem," his father had said. "You start helping everyone with a sad story, you'll have nothing left for yourself." The friend's family had moved away. Marcus never saw him again. He'd learned the lesson. By 9 a.m., Marcus was in his corner office, fielding calls from Tokyo and London. His assistant, Janet, efficient, 50-something, the only person who'd worked for him longer than 2 years, brought him his schedule printed on cream cardstock. "The Children's Hospital Foundation Gala is tonight," she reminded him. 7 o'clock. Black tie. Marcus nodded without looking up. He attended a dozen charity events a year. Tax deductible. Good PR. His company wrote checks, he shook hands, and everyone pretended the transaction was about compassion rather than optics. "Also," Janet added carefully, "there's a woman in reception. 3rd time this week. She says her daughter needs a lung transplant and the insurance won't. Tell security to escort her out." Gently. Marcus's voice was flat. "And flag her so she can't get back in." Janet hesitated. "Marcus." "Janet, I pay you for efficiency, not commentary." He finally looked up, his expression professionally neutral. "If I help one person, there'll be 50 more tomorrow. You know this." She left without another word, but something in the set of her shoulders made Marcus feel oddly hollow. He pushed the feeling aside and returned to his emails. The gala that night was at the Fairmont, all crystal chandeliers and carefully orchestrated elegance. Marcus arrived alone, he always did. Relationships were another luxury his father had warned against. "Partners become leverage," the old man had said. "Stay untethered." Marcus worked the room with practiced ease. Handshakes, small talk, strategic donations announced to scattered applause. He pledged $50,000 to the hospital's new wing without blinking. The foundation director gushed. Cameras flashed. The check would be written Monday. He was standing with Boston's mayor, discussing tax incentives, when the commotion started. The lobby doors, ornate brass affairs that required 2 people to open, crashed inward. A security guard stumbled backward, trying to contain a small, desperate figure. The boy was maybe 10 years old, Latino, with a mop of black hair and clothes that had seen better years. His jacket was 2 sizes too big, the cuffs frayed. His jeans had patches at the knees. But it was his eyes that struck Marcus. Wide, terrified, and blazing with a determination that seemed too old for his face. "Please," the boy shouted, his voice cutting through the refined murmur of conversation. "I just need someone to listen. My sister is dying and the hospital won't. Son, I've asked you 3 times. The guard, a heavy-set man with a kind face gone frustrated, reached for the boy's arm. The child twisted away with surprising agility, and suddenly he was running into the ballroom, his worn sneakers squeaking on marble. Guests gasped, stepping back, champagne flutes held protectively against designer gowns. The boy's eyes swept the crowd desperately, landing on Marcus. Maybe it was the expensive tuxedo. Maybe it was the way people had parted around him, marking him as important. Whatever the reason, the child made a beeline straight for him. "Sir, please." The boy skidded to a stop 3 feet away, breathing hard. Up close, Marcus could see the tear tracks on his dirty face, the desperate hope warring with terror in his eyes. "Can you help my sister breathe?" The security guard caught up, grabbing the boy's shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Chen." He slipped past the front, but Marcus raised his hand, silencing him. He stared at the boy, and something cracked in his chest, something he'd spent 30 years building walls around. The child's voice dropped to a whisper, breaking. "Please. I don't know where else to go." The ballroom held its breath. Marcus looked at this child, this desperate, shaking kid in clothes held together with hope and duct tape, and saw something he'd spent decades trying to forget. Himself at 12, begging his father to help his best friend's family. The cold refusal. The lesson learned. "Let him go," Marcus said quietly. The guard hesitated. "Sir, let him go." The guard's hand dropped. The boy stood there trembling, his thin chest heaving, tracks of tears cutting through the grime on his cheeks. Around them, 300 of Boston's elite watched with expressions ranging from horror to fascination to carefully manufactured concern. Marcus crouched down, his expensive tuxedo straining, until he was eye level with the child. "What's your name?" "Diego." The boy's voice cracked. "Diego Reyes." "Diego, I'm Marcus." He kept his voice gentle, though his heart was hammering. "Tell me what's happening." Slowly, the words tumbled out in a rush. "My sister Elena, she's 8. She's at Mass General right now and she can't breathe right. Her lungs are bad. They've been bad since she was born, but now they're worse and the doctors say she needs new lungs, but our insurance won't pay for the transplant list, and Mom's insurance from the restaurant where she works isn't good enough." And he sucked in a ragged breath. "They said it costs $500,000 just to get on the real list, the one where she might actually get lungs, and we don't have anything, and Mom's working 3 jobs, and I've been trying to, okay, breathe." Marcus put a hand on the boy's shoulder and felt him shaking. "How did you know to come here?" Diego wiped his nose with his sleeve. "I saw the poster outside. It said Children's Hospital Foundation Gala. I thought maybe someone here could help. The hospital people, they won't even talk to Mom anymore. They just say we're sorry and send bills." His eyes filled again. "Elena's so scared. She tries to be brave, but I can't hear her crying at night because she can't breathe good." Something twisted in Marcus's chest. "Where's your mother now?" "At the hospital. With Elena. She doesn't know I came here. I took the bus. Took me 2 hours." Diego's chin lifted with defiant pride. "I'm not asking for charity. I'll work. I'll do anything. I just need someone to give us a chance." Marcus became aware of the crowd pressing closer, phones emerging. The foundation director materialized at his elbow, her smile strained. "Mr. Chen, perhaps we should take this to a private—" "No." Marcus stood, keeping his hand on Diego's shoulder. His father's voice echoed in his head. Emotional attachment is a luxury. But when he looked at this child, all he could see was his own younger self, learning that the world was cold and help never came. He could be his father, write a check, hand the boy to professionals, return to his champagne, where he could be something else. "Diego, I'm going to help your sister." The words came out before he'd fully thought them through, but once spoken, they settled into certainty. "Right now? Tonight?" Diego's eyes went wide. You mean it?" "I mean it." Marcus pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts. "But I need you to trust me, okay? Can you do that?" The boy nodded so hard his whole body shook. Marcus dialed. The phone rang twice before a crisp voice answered. "Dr. Patricia Knowles." "Patricia, it's Marcus Chen. I need a favor, and I need it now." He'd donated $2 million to her research lab 3 years ago. Time to collect. "There's a little girl at Mass General, Elena Reyes, 8 years old, needs a lung transplant. I need you to get her case file, review it personally, and I need her on every possible transplant list by morning." "Marcus, it's not that simple. There are protocols, insurance, on covering all costs personally. Insurance, surgery, aftercare, everything. Whatever it takes." Around him, the crowd murmured. Phones were definitely recording now. Marcus didn't care. "Patricia, I've never asked you for anything. I'm asking now. This child gets the best care available. Please." A pause. "Then, send me her information. I'll make some calls tonight." Marcus typed rapidly, getting details from Diego: full name, date of birth, current location. He forwarded everything to Dr. Knowles, then made 3 more calls. To his lawyer, to the hospital's administration, to his accountant. Each time, the message was the same: whatever it costs, make it happen. Diego watched with something like awe dawning on his face. You're really doing this. Marcus crouched down again. Diego, I need you to listen to me carefully. Your sister is going to get help. Real help. The best doctors, the best care. But this isn't going to be instant, okay? Getting on transplant lists, finding donor matches, it takes time. Weeks, maybe months. But I know. Which is why Dr. Knowles will stabilize her tonight. Make sure she's comfortable while we wait. She'll have the best medical team in Boston watching her around the clock. Marcus squeezed the boy's shoulder. I promise you, Elena is not alone anymore. Neither are you. Tears spilled down Diego's cheeks, but he was smiling, a wobbly, disbelieving smile that made him look even younger. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you, come on. Marcus stood, his hand still on Diego's shoulder. Let's get you to the hospital. I want to meet your mother and your sister. The drive to Mass General took 20 minutes in Marcus's town car. Diego sat pressed against the window, his thin frame tense with nervous energy, occasionally glancing at Marcus as if afraid he'd disappear. Marcus spent the drive making more calls, dismantling the walls of bureaucracy that stood between Elena and treatment. Money, he'd learned long ago, could move mountains. He'd just never used it for something that mattered. Why? Diego asked suddenly, his voice small. Why are you helping us? You don't even know us. Marcus looked at this child, this fierce, desperate kid who had crashed a gala because he refused to watch his sister die, and felt something he hadn't felt in 30 years, the person he might have been if someone had helped when he'd asked. Because someone should have helped me once, and they didn't, Marcus said quietly. And I learned the wrong lesson from that. I learned to be cold, to not care. He met Diego's eyes. You're giving me a chance to unlearn it. The hospital's pediatric wing was a special kind of awful. 2 bright lights, the smell of antiseptic and fear, the sound of machines beeping in sterile rhythm. Diego led Marcus through the maze of corridors with the confidence of someone who had walked them too many times. Room 347. Diego pushed the door open carefully. The woman sitting beside the small bed looked up, her face exhausted and wary. She was maybe 35, her dark hair pulled back, her eyes carrying the weight of every sleepless night, an unpayable bill. When she saw Diego, relief and anger flashed across her face in equal measure. Diego, Dios mío, where have you been? I've been. Then she noticed Marcus in his tuxedo, and her expression shuddered. Who is this? But Marcus wasn't looking at her. His eyes had found the small figure in the bed. Elena Reyes was tiny, her 8-year-old frame swimming in a hospital gown. Oxygen tubes ran to her nose. Her skin had a grayish tint that spoke of lungs failing to do their job. But when she saw her brother, her face lit up with a smile that made Marcus's throat tight. Diego, she whispered, her voice breathy and weak. You came back. I brought help, Mija. Diego rushed to her bedside, taking her hand with infinite gentleness. This is Mr. Chen. He's going to fix everything. The mother, Mrs. Reyes, stood, placing herself between Marcus and her children. I don't know what Diego told you, but we're not a charity case. We don't need, Mrs. Reyes. Marcus raised his hands, non-threatening. My name is Marcus Chen. Your son came to a charity gala tonight and asked for help, and he's going to get it. We can't pay. I'm not asking you to. Marcus pulled out his phone, showing her the email chain with Dr. Knowles. I've arranged for Dr. Patricia Knowles, one of the best pulmonary specialists in the country, to take over Elena's care. She's reviewing the case tonight. By morning, Elena will be on every transplant list available, and I'm covering all costs, surgery, medications, recovery, everything. Mrs. Reyes stared at him like he was speaking another language. I don't. Why would you? Because your son is the bravest person I've met in years. Marcus's voice cracked slightly. And because I can. And because. He paused, something breaking open in his chest. Because 30 years ago, I asked someone for help, and they said no. And it changed who I became. Made me hard. Cold. Taught me that caring was weakness. He looked at Diego, then at Elena's small face, then back at Mrs. Reyes. Your children are teaching me something different. That caring is strength. That asking for help takes more courage than I've shown in decades." Mrs. Reyes's knees seemed to buckle. She sat down hard in the bedside chair, her hand over her mouth. "You're serious?" "Completely." She started to cry. Deep, shaking sobs of relief and disbelief. Diego wrapped his arms around her, and Elena reached out with her small hand to touch her mother's arm. Marcus stood there, this millionaire in a tuxedo who'd spent 30 years building walls, and felt them all crumble at once. Dr. Knowles arrived 40 minutes later with 2 residents and a tablet full of scans. She spent 20 minutes examining Elena, asking questions, reviewing history. When she finished, her expression was cautiously optimistic. "She's not critical," Dr. Knowles said, addressing Mrs. Reyes directly. "But she will be within 6 months without intervention. The good news is, she's young, otherwise healthy, and a good candidate for transplant. I'm putting her on the national registry tonight as high priority. We'll also explore living donor options and some newer treatments that might buy us time." "How long?" Mrs. Reyes whispered. "Until she gets lungs?" "Months, typically. But we'll keep her stable, comfortable." Dr. Knowles glanced at Marcus. "And she'll have the best care available while we wait." Over the next hour, Marcus watched the pieces fall into place. Specialists were called. Plans were made. Elena was moved to a better room. Mrs. Reyes signed paperwork with shaking hands while Diego sat beside his sister, telling her about the fancy party and the kind man in the expensive suit. At midnight, Marcus finally prepared to leave. Mrs. Reyes caught his arm in the hallway. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice raw. "You've given us hope when I thought there was none left." "Thank Diego." Marcus glanced back at the room where the boy sat holding his sister's hand. "He's the one who refused to give up, who fought for her. He's a good boy. They both are." Mrs. Reyes wiped her eyes. "Mr. Chen, why did you really do this? People like you don't usually. People like me are usually too afraid to care," Marcus said quietly. "Your son reminded me that fear is just another kind of prison, and I've been locked up long enough." 3 months later, Marcus stood in the same hospital, in a different room. Elena was in surgery. A perfect match had been found. Lungs from a teenage donor who'd specified that life should come from their death. The surgery was hour 8 of a projected 12. Diego sat beside Marcus in the waiting room, his new sneakers, bought by Marcus during one of several strategy meetings that involved ice cream and honest conversation, tapping nervously against the chair legs. "She's going to be okay," Marcus said. "Dr. Knowles is the best." "I know." Diego's voice was still tight with anxiety. "But I'm still scared." "That's allowed. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared." Mrs. Reyes dozed in the corner, exhausted from months of vigil. The past 3 months had transformed all their lives. Elena had stayed stable. Diego had started getting tutoring, funded by a scholarship from Chen Industries. Mrs. Reyes had quit 2 of her 3 jobs when Marcus arranged for a living stipend disguised as a consultation fee for a community outreach program he'd suddenly decided his company needed. But more than that, they'd become something like family. Marcus showed up for hospital visits, attended Diego's soccer games, helped Elena with homework during her good days, let himself care, deeply and messily, for the first time in 30 years. Janet said he smiled more now. His board said he'd gone soft. Marcus thought maybe he'd finally gotten hard in the right ways, strong enough to be gentle, wealthy enough to be generous, successful enough to admit he'd been failing at the things that mattered. At hour 11, Dr. Knowles emerged in scrubs, her mask pulled down, her expression exhausted but triumphant. "She's going to be fine. The lungs are functioning beautifully. She'll be in recovery for a few hours, then ICU, but everything went exactly as planned." Mrs. Reyes sobbed into her hands. Diego let out a whoop of joy. Marcus felt tears on his own cheeks and didn't bother to hide them. 6 weeks later, Elena came home to an apartment Marcus had helped them move into a better neighborhood, closer to the hospital. Rent he quietly covered through a housing assistance program that existed specifically for one family. She could breathe on her own, run, even, though the doctors said to take it slow. Her laugh, which Marcus had rarely heard in those early months, was constant now, bubbling and bright. The Chen Industries board meeting fell on the same day as Elena's welcome home party. Marcus chose the party. Let them think he'd gone soft. He had. Soft enough to hug Diego when the boy ran to him. soft enough to tear up when Elena presented him with a crayon drawing of Mr. Marcus, my hero. That night, standing on the small apartment balcony while inside Diego and Elena decorated a cake with more enthusiasm than skill, Mrs. Reyes joined him. You saved her life, she said simply. Diego saved her life. I just had the resources he needed. No. Mrs. Reyes shook her head. Diego had the courage to ask. You had the courage to say yes. Both were necessary. Marcus thought about that. About the millionaire he'd been, cold, efficient, untouchable. About the man he was becoming, connected, caring, somehow wealthier in ways that had nothing to do with bank accounts. Your family saved my life too, he said quietly. You just didn't realize I was dying. Inside, Elena's laugh rang out as Diego apparently dumped frosting on his own head. The sound was pure joy, uncomplicated and bright. Marcus smiled, this hard-won expression of contentment, and realized his father had been wrong about everything. Emotional attachment wasn't a luxury. It was the whole point. The only thing that made success mean anything. The only thing that made life worth living. And sometimes the bravest thing you could do was exactly what a 10-year-old boy in duct tape sneakers had done. Show up and ask someone to help you breathe.